Guys in YouTube. Welcome to the third day. We have discussed drama on the first 2 days. Today we will be discussing poetry, British poetry. And the next day we will be discussing non-British poetry. Okay, guys. Are you ready? So let us start talking about poetry from the beginnings. As you know, as you expect, we will start from our favorite writer, Geoffrey Chaucer. Poetry began in the modern times with Chaucer. British poetry, European poetry started with Chaucer. As all of you know, Chaucer's prologue to the Canterbury Tales is the most important work, but in net, they will ask you other works of Chaucer also. You know, minor works of major authors. Chaucer was influenced by the Renaissance fountainheads of literature, Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio. Chaucer has also written many other important works, such as the Book of the Duchess, the House of Fame, the Parliament of Fowls, Troilus and Cresside, and then the Legend of Good Women. He also wrote the Legend of Saint Cecilia, Palamon and Arcite, Treatise on the Astrolabe, and also some small poems are there that are also important. So look up Chaucer's minor works, look up Chaucer's time also, the kind of society in which Chaucer lived, that also could be important. Now, let me ask you some questions. Instead of lecturing all the time, let me ask you some questions. Which dream allegory did Chaucer translate? Which dream allegory did Chaucer translate? Everybody knows it is Roman de la Rose. Chaucer translated Roman de la Rose. Very good. Yes, Treatise on the Astrolabe is a prose work. Shalini, you're right. And he dedicated Treatise on the Astrolabe to his own son, little Louis. Okay, there were many dream allegories that Chaucer wrote. Chaucer wrote many dream allegories. Tell me, guys, which is the first of Chaucer's dream visions? Answer me. Many of you are telling me the correct answer in Zoom as well as YouTube. The first of Chaucer's dream visions is the Book of the Duchess. It has a long prologue. Remember that? The long prologue to Book of the Duchess is important. Legend of Good Women also has a prologue. Remember that. In which book did Chaucer introduce Chaucerian stanza? In which book did Chaucer introduce Chaucerian stanza? It is in Parliament of Fowls. Those who are beginners, don't worry. If you don't know these answers, no problem. This is only an opportunity to know how to prepare for the exam. What are the facts that are needed? In the exam, questions will be even more difficult, but with the facts, you will be able to guess correctly most of the time. Okay? And also, when you start studying all this that I am telling you now, you will remember. If you have not started preparation, don't worry. If you have started preparation, remember to read extra about all this. Guys, in House of Fame, what is Chaucer's guide? What animal, mythological creature, or bird is Chaucer's guide in House of Fame? Guide is a convention in dream allegory. It is an eagle. House of Fame has an eagle. Chaucer is being carried away by an eagle. Will you remember that, guys? Now, in Canterbury Tales, who tells the story of an eagle or falcon, talking eagle or falcon, which has oriental elements? Who tells the story of a talking eagle or falcon and it has oriental elements? It is the squire. It is the squire. Okay. Now, guys, in Canterbury Tales, who represents the business class? He is appearing to be very rich. He is newly and happily married. And he is talking about money, but actually he is in debt. It is the merchant. It is the merchant. Remember, the social connection or the social relevance of these characters could be very important. How far did they represent a particular class? Things like that. How did their lifestyle or culture reflect in their stories? That kind of questions can be expected. Will you remember, guys? Actual facts may be asked, but it will be, can you see the screen, everybody? I think you can't.
Yes, ma'am.
You can. Okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you. I'm muting you in Zoom. Okay. Coming back, there could be questions on Chaucer's contemporaries also. There could be questions on Chaucer's contemporaries. Which of Chaucer's contemporaries was an aristocrat? He supported aristocracy in the peasants' revolt. He did not want to support the peasants' revolt and Wat Tyler. He thought that peasants' revolt is blasphemous. It is John Gower. In John Gower's Vox Clementis, he talked about peasants' revolts. He wrote only one work in English, John Gower. It is Confessio Amantis. And because it is English, he did not deal with any serious theme there. He thought English is no good for teaching. Did you understand? They might ask you about John Wycliffe, his works, Summa Theologica, because those are related to Protestantism and Reformation. So, historically important works of this time, they might ask from Chaucer's age. Will you remember that? Tomorrow itself, please look up these authors. Okay? Right. There were Oxford reformers in the time of Chaucer. Such movements, they always ask in net. Beginners and advanced learners, all of you remember to look up movements. You should keep your own notes. Even if you have the encyclopedia, which is an amazing wealth of information, you should still make your own notes from it. Even just before the exam also, you should make notes. Okay, guys? Oxford reformers included Desiderius, Erasmus, who wrote The Praise of Folly. It is a satirical work, praising folly. Remember, Hans Holbein was an artist who was contemporary at that time. He did some paintings on praise of folly, drawings and paintings. In one set exam, I saw a question based on Hans Holbein. Okay, remember, in the encyclopedia, even the pictures that I have given could be important in the exam. These days, they are asking from some of these pictures also. There were Chaucerians after Chaucer in Scotland and England. Who is the Scottish Chaucerian who was called Burns, Robert Burns of the 15th century? He wrote the Thistle and the Roys. Thistle is thorn. Roys means rose. It is William Dunbar. These are actually BA level questions. There will be easy questions as well as difficult questions in the exam. And in Chaucer's time, there was the Great Vowel Shift. So what important historical events in Chaucer's time, like that you can Google search. Complete works of Chaucer, even minor poems, etc. You should Google search and read and keep for the exam. Chaucer's contemporaries, just like that you Google search. Apart from what you read in encyclopedia and other material. Okay. Yes, Akanksha. King James I of Scotland was also Chaucerian. He wrote King is Square or King's Book. King James I of Scotland. King James I of England was there. He was a different king. He was later. James I of England developed King James Bible. James I of Scotland was a Chaucerian. James I of England developed King James Bible. Will you remember, guys? I'm just reminding you these things. If you look up quickly before the exam, you have time. Okay. I am guiding you like a tourist guide. Before the exam, if you look up quickly, you will remember in the exam. And those who are beginning to prepare for the exam, make a note of what all I am saying. Oh, these, how to prepare, what are the things that are important? Like that, make a note. Okay. What is the wife of Usher's Well? What is the wife of Usher's Well? It is a ballad. Remember, guys, in many PGT exams, in many universities, ballads of the 15th century are prescribed. Ballads of the 15th century. Remember, guys, they might ask you one detailed question from a ballad. Okay, you should know ballads. Right, guys? And the first collection of ballads was made by Bishop Percy. It is called Relics of Ancient English Poetry. Bishop Percy's Relics of Ancient English Poetry. The second collection of ballads was Francis J. Child's ballad. Francis J. Child's ballad collection is English and Scottish popular ballads. Pushpa Parme, you understood now. King James Jacobean is King James I of England. The other one is King James I of Scotland. Remember, guys, in literary terms books, literary terms by M.H. Abrams, Cudden, etc., you should read on genres. The examples given there, etc., they might ask in net to check whether you have read. Will you read? Important literary terms books. Cudden is there. M.H. Abrams is there. Many books are there like that. You should read there about the genres, because from those books, they will ask questions. Okay. Now, there is, after Chaucer's time, important early writers like Thomas Malory, then the origins of drama. First, there were miracle plays, then mystery plays, then morality plays. Miracle plays, mystery plays, morality plays. Will you remember? Estates satire. These are important genres during this time. Okay. As you know, there is the early Tudor period. And there our first short author is Edmund Spenser. He is an early Tudor writer. Edmund Spenser. Shakespeare's contemporary. All of you know Shakespeare's contemporaries, and you know Edmund Spenser's important works. Spenser was born in 1552. If they ask you to chronologically arrange Spenser's works, will you be able to arrange them? It could be important. Spenser was born in 1552. He was a humanist. His first important work was Shepherd's Calendar. Remember, guys, first important work, Shepherd's Calendar. Those who are beginners, listen to me. Even if exam wasn't there now, I would still have given you an overview like this. Only then I will teach you in detail. This overview is very important. This gives you the methodology. And students who are writing the exam this time, you are going to pass with JRF. Remember to read. You have 1 or 2 weeks before the exam. Remember to read all these authors and works, detailed summary also. Remember, guys, in some universities, Fairy Queen is prescribed in detail. So read more about Fairy Queen. Important details of Fairy Queen, you should know. So first, Shepherd's Calendar, 1579. Then a view of the present state of Ireland, 1598. Before that, there is Fairy Queen in 3 parts. Fairy Queen in 3 parts is there. 1590 it was. Amority and Epithalamion came in 1595. Isn't it? Prothalamion came in 1596. Same year, 1596, Fairy Queen came in 6 parts. Fairy Queen, detailed summary you might be able to, you might be required to know. Okay, not all the details, but who are the important characters in Fairy Queen, which are the major incidents in Fairy Queen, like that little bit you should know. Okay, and Fairy Queen was written in Spenserian stanza. Remember, yesterday we talked about university wits also, but they were not primarily poets, but Spenser is a poet. Then Philip Sidney is also a poet. He wrote Astrophel and Stella. Spenser wrote Amority sonnet sequence. Philip Sidney wrote Astrophel and Stella. He also wrote prose work, Arcadia, Defense of Poesy. Philip Sidney's Astrophel and Stella is a sonnet sequence. Amority by Spenser had 89 sonnets. How many sonnets are there in Astrophel and Stella by Sidney? 108 sonnets and 11 songs. Anna? And Astrophel and Stella has a preface written by Thomas Nash. Preface written by Thomas Nash. Astrophel means star lover. And then we have William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare, as you know, is the most important poet of Elizabethan period and English literature. William Shakespeare wrote poetry as well as drama, but much of his drama was in poetry. He wrote how many sonnets? 154 sonnets. It was written at the time when the theaters were closed during the plague. The first 126 sonnets are addressed to a fair youth. The next 26 sonnets are addressed to a dark lady. And the last 2 sonnets are about Cupid. What is the nature of these sonnets, they might ask? It is the dark lady sonnets that talk about physical love, mostly. The fair youth sonnets are more platonic. Yes, guys? Please read a little bit extra about Shakespeare's sonnets. Shakespeare is also said to have written 2 long poems. Some critics say 4 long poems. 2 or 4 long poems. Venus and Adonis and Rape of Lucrece. Venus and Adonis is a long poem by William Shakespeare. Rape of Lucrece is also long poem. Sonnets are short poems. Sonnets are 14-lined poems. Did you understand? Those who are new here in Zoom, my paid students, or in YouTube, please understand this is before the exam, a crash course. I am preparing you for the NET exam that is coming up, hopefully at the end of this month. And you are getting an overview of how to study for the exam. Right. Without knowing how to study for the exam, people who are beginners cannot study at all. Those who are advanced level learners and preparing for the exam, remember, based on this crash course, you have to read extra. Only then you will be able to get solid knowledge for the exam. Okay, So guys, every day, along with what I am teaching, you have to read extra, which is very, very important. The most important meter that Shakespeare used was blank verse. Blank verse is unrhymed iambic pentameter. Yes, Akanksha, the first 126 sonnets are the fair youth sonnets. I told you this already 2 minutes ago. The next 26 sonnets are dark lady sonnets. Okay? And sonneteering was very common at this time. Many people were writing sonnets. As you know, Sidney and Spencer, Shakespeare, all wrote sonnets. Samuel Daniel, Michael Drayton. So many people wrote sonnets at this time. Sonneteers, one question can be asked. Now, the Jacobean poets. In the Jacobean period, the most important poet was, of course, John Donne. John Donne wrote satires, love elegies. So many important poems of John Donne are prescribed in universities. One question from John Donne can be expected. Okay? Important poems of John Donne, such as the Canonization, the Flea, a Hymn to God the Father, Benediction Forbidding Morning, Sun Rising, Love's Alchemy, Good Morrow. So many poems are important. I hope you will remember to look them up. Right, guys? And in the Jacobean period, there were other poets also. Some of them wrote epigrams. Remember, guys, Jacobean period, batter my heart also, correct? Many of the Jacobean writers were dramatists, but there were poets also. Donne himself influenced the metaphysical poets. Along with metaphysical poets, there were cavalier poets also. Hannah? And cavalier poets were royalists who supported the king. There were other poets like Thomas Campion. Thomas Campion matlab kya hai? Thomas Campion is a Jacobean poet. Jacobean poet, Thomas Campion wrote the Book of Airs, A-I-R-S, Book of Airs. He was also a critic. Emilia Lanier, Phineas and Giles Fletcher, important poets of this time. Now we will come to metaphysical poets very soon. But before that, we have John Milton. John Milton. I think you are not able to see the screen. Are you seeing John Milton here? Can you see John Milton? Something is wrong with screen sharing, I think. Abhi to John Milton. I will share screen once again. Okay, now it must be correct. Your screen sharing is paused, bata rahe hain. Kyun? Some technical problem is there, I think. Can you see it done? Okay, okay. Then no problem. I thought you can't see. Huh. Now only you could see. Okay, okay, okay. I'll show like this. Somebody told me change the picture. Only then I understood you can't. Okay, John Milton. Koi nahi. I'm so sorry, guys. If there was a mistake, I'm so sorry. Right. John Milton, I was telling you, is an important poet. And John Milton is the religious poet who wrote Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and Samson Agonistus. Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and Samson Agonistus. Remember, John Milton also wrote prose. Milton's prose is called Milton's Left Hand. Milton's prose is called Milton's Left Hand. Remember, early poems of Milton, L'Allegro and Il Penseroso. Milton also wrote Comus. What was Comus? Comus was a mask. Remember, Comus was a mask. Some of Milton's poems were called Horton poems. Horton poems. It included Lycidas. Lycidas was part of Horton poems. And then Milton wrote his greatest poems after the Restoration. Which are the Restoration poems? Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and Samson Agonistes. Yes, Shalini is reminding us, on Shakespeare is his first published work. He wrote a poem on Shakespeare. Hannah, guys, one question from textual question from Paradise Lost can be asked. Okay, you should remember to look up Paradise Lost, detailed summary. One textual question from Paradise Lost can be asked. Okay, yes, guys, arcades and comus are the masks that Milton wrote. Paradise Lost is based on the fall of man. Paradise Regained is about Jesus being tempted by Satan. Jesus being tempted by Satan. Milton also wrote sonnets. How many sonnets did Milton write? Tell me. 23 sonnets Milton wrote, of which 2 are important, on his blindness and on the late massacre at Piedmont. On his blindness and on the late massacre at Piedmont. Those are the 2 sonnets, famous sonnets. Milton's poetic style is called grand style. Many critics have written about Milton. Horton period was early period. It was the time just after his education. He went to Cambridge, and after that immediately he wrote poems at Horton upon leaving Cambridge. It was in the 1630s. Okay? Right. And Milton, many poets and critics have written about Milton. Milton studies is there. Critics on Milton, books on Milton are important. Milton's God by William Emerson. Milton's Grand Style by Christopher Ricks. Stanley Fish has written about Milton. Okay? If you are beginning to study only, don't worry. I am just giving you like a map. Okay? What is expected? I am showing you, that's all. Don't panic. Don't worry. Okay, you will only benefit from this. You don't have to study and remember everything on the first day. But if you are going to write this exam, this is going to help you. In Milton's time, there were the metaphysical poets. Now, guys, cavaliers and metaphysicals were there. Who are the cavalier poets? Lovelace, Suckling, Carew, then Herrick. They were all cavaliers. Some of them were metaphysicals also. Who are the metaphysical poets? Tell me. Abraham Cowley, Andrew Marvell. One question from metaphysical poets is sure. One question from metaphysical poets you will surely get. Okay, you should remember. One question from metaphysical poets. You should look up the works of Cowley, Marvell. You should be ready for match the following. Will you look up? It is homework for you. Every day, are you doing the homework? Let me ask you some random questions. YouTube babies and Zoom babies, answer me in the chat box. Okay. Who is the author of Bermudas and Upon Appleton House? Who is the author of Bermudas and Upon Appleton House? These are poems by... you are telling me correct answers. It is Andrew Marvell. It is Andrew Marvell, correct. Now tell me, who wrote the failed epics, the Civil Wars and Davies? Who wrote the failed epics, Civil Wars and Davies? It is Abraham Cowley. It is Abraham Cowley. Who wrote To Ben Jonson? To Ben Jonson. It is by Thomas Carew. Ode to Ben Jonson is by Ode to Ben Jonson. to Ben Jonson is by Thomas Carey. Ode to Ben Jonson is by Robert Herrick. Okay, Metaphysicals and Cavaliers, very, very important. Now, array, happy Onam, I forgot to tell you at the beginning. Now it is in Kerala, Onam time. So, blessings for all of you. Let this year bring you all kinds of prosperity. Okay, this is from everybody in TES. Happy Onam to all of you. And during this time, we also have 50K happy customers. 50,000 people have bought from Bodhi Tree. Bodhi Tree website tells us 50,000 customers we have reached. So we are celebrating with a giveaway. In Bodhi Tree Books Instagram account, there is a giveaway happening. You can go to Instagram and participate in the giveaway competition and you will get books. Will you take part in the competition, guys? All blessings to you and happy, happy, happy Onam to all of you. Okay, next we will talk about the amazing poet and satirist, John Dryden. You know that John Dryden was an important Restoration figure. He was a very important playwright, poet, critic from the Restoration period. Dryden was a Tory. He wrote the original satires, Macflecknoe, before that the Medal, before that Absalom and Achitophel. Absalom and Achitophel, Medal and Macflecknoe. These came in the 1681-82 period. Dryden's original satires, they are attacking the Whigs like Shaftesbury and Shadwell. And in Absalom and Achitophel, he used a biblical story. Yes, that is right, Manju Sharma. Long before Absalom and Achitophel, Medal and Macflecknoe, Dryden wrote 2 major poems, heroic stanzas on the death of Oliver Cromwell, and also Annus Mirabilis and Astrea Redux. 3 major poems. Heroic stanzas, Astrea Redux, Annus Mirabilis. These are the major poems written by Dryden at this time. Early poems. Early poems are heroic stanzas, Astrea Redux, Annus Mirabilis. Later he wrote satires, Absalom and Achitophel, Medal, and Macflecknoe. Dryden was a liberal neoclassicist and he became a major critic. He came to be called father of criticism. Father of criticism. Hannah? Okay. Next, in the Restoration period, other poets were not there actually. But in the Augustan period, there was the brilliant poet, Alexander Pope. The Augustan age is the early 18th century. Those who are beginning to study, are you paying attention? Pay attention, okay? Alexander Pope was a major Augustan poet or neoclassical poet. The neoclassical period is the time of satire, mock epic, odes, verse, epistles. Are you feeling pressurized or are you enjoying? Tell me. Are you enjoying and remembering everything or are you feeling pressurized? Thank you. I hope my new students who have just joined are also enjoying. You have to get an overview. Don't feel pressurized. You are most important for me. Those who are beginners, those who are just beginning to prepare, those who have just joined our course, do not feel any stress. We will cover all this in detail. Okay. Wonderful that you are all remembering. Alexander Pope gave importance to poetic diction. Hannah, what are the years of Alexander Pope's life? 1688 to 1744. 1688 to 1744. Alexander Pope's early works are pastorals an essay on criticism. If anybody is feeling pressurized or mind is not working properly, relax. Relax. Just listen to what I'm saying. If possible, tomorrow watch this again or just read something on your own. Okay? Okay, Deepsa, I'll ask you questions. I'll ask you. No problem. Okay. What kind of satire is essay on criticism? Bolo. What kind of satire is essay on criticism? It is Horatian satire. Horatian satire laughs at people, isn't it? In which work did Alexander Pope attack Rosicrucianism? In which work did Alexander Pope attack Rosicrucianism? Zoom babies. Yes, it is Rape of the Lock. It is in Rape of the Lock that Alexander Pope attacked Rosicrucianism. Correct. It is Rape of the Lock, which was actually published in several editions. First edition came in 1712. Next edition came in 1714. Martin Scriblerus is the character based on Dryden, who was upheld by the Scriblerus Club. Okay. In which year did Alexander Pope bring out an edition of Shakespeare? In which year did Alexander Pope bring out an edition of Shakespeare? It was in 1725. 1725. Later works of Pope are an essay on man, Dunciad, and moral essays. Essay on man, Dunciad, and moral essays are later works of Pope. Okay, guys, when you study thoroughly. Remember everything. Who are the dedicatees, remember, of the poem Essay on Man? Who is the dedicatee? It is addressed to Henry St. John, Viscount Bolingbroke. Moral Essays is addressed to several persons. Moral Essays is addressed to several persons. Remember? And who are the other Augustan poets? We have Jonathan Swift, Lady Mary Wortley Montague, Matthew Prior. Remember the other transitional poets? John Gay. There might be a question from them. Then there are the transitional poets. The transitional poets are the early romantics. They are all, some of them are the graveyard poets. Now we are moving into the second volume of encyclopedia. Who are the transitional poets? You will definitely get a question based on transitional poets. We have Thomas Gray, William Blake, then Thomas Parnell, William Cowper, William Collins. Who among them wrote Ode to Fear, Ode to Pity, Ode on the Poetical Character? Those are by William Collins. William Collins. Okay. Who among them wrote The Progress of Error, The Task, The Castaway? The Progress of Error, The Task, The Castaway are all by William Cowper. William Cowper. Who wrote Ossianic poems? Who among them wrote Ossianic poems? It is James Macpherson. James Macpherson. Who wrote Rowley poems? Rowley poems are by Thomas Chatterton. Rowley poems are by Thomas Chatterton. Zoom babies, YouTube babies, you're answering. I'm happy. Read extra. This is homework, okay? Don't forget. Now, William Wordsworth. Oh my God. So many questions I've already given in previous courses, etc. So many questions on Wordsworth. Important. Definitely they will ask, Hannah. Many of Shakespeare, Wordsworth's poems are about suffering women, about nature and countryside. Shall I ask you some questions quickly, guys? What genre does the poem "The World is Too Much with Us" belong to? The poem "The World is Too Much with Us" belongs to which genre? It is a sonnet. The World is Too Much with Us is one of the many sonnets of Wordsworth. In which poem does Wordsworth talk about Betty Foy and her love for her disabled son? Betty Foy appears in The Idiot Boy. The Idiot Boy. Okay, and Martha Ray. Martha Ray appears in which poem by Wordsworth? It is in The Thorn. The Thorn by Wordsworth. Okay, which poem begins with the line, "Her eyes are wild"? Her eyes are wild. The poem is The Mad Mother. The Mad Mother. Yes, Pushpa, there are 3 volumes of British Literature Encyclopedia that we have, and American Literature 2 volumes are going to be released soon. Next, we will quickly look at S.T. Coleridge. S.T. Coleridge was also a very major poet, and he wrote conversation poems, asra poems. He developed the theory of imagination, and which are the conversation poems? Important, you should look up. The Aeolian Harp, Reflections on Having Left a Place of Retirement, This Lime Tree Bower My Prison, Frost at Midnight, Fears in Solitude, all very important. Yes, Kubla Khan also important. Okay, so S.T. Coleridge's poems, major poems, you have to look up. Christabel, opening line. Like that, will you do a Google search? Coleridge talked about one life in poems like Aeolian Harp. He talked about one life. Okay, he also wrote a poem called To William Wordsworth. Then Byron, Shelley, Keats. Coleridge wrote poems, and after that came Byron, Shelley, Keats, the late Romantics. Byron wrote poems as well as plays. So did Shelley. Shelley also wrote plays. Their biography is important, their works important. Shall I ask you a few questions from here and there, guys? Asia, Hercules, Jupiter. They appear in which work? Asia, Hercules, Jupiter. They appear in Prometheus Unbound by Shelley. Prometheus Unbound by Shelley. Okay, which poem has the lines, "My very chains and I grew friends"? My very chains and I grew friends. It is from Byron's The Prisoner of Chillon. Remember to look up the poems themselves. It is not enough to read about the poem. You should look up the poem, because there will be questions based on the poem. If only you read the poem, you will remember. Will you read poems when you study, guys? Okay. Which is the narrative poem in Spenserian stanza modeled on Romeo and Juliet? Narrative poem in Spenserian stanza based on Romeo and Juliet is The Eve of Saint Agnes. The Eve of Saint Agnes. Which poem by Keats is based on a medieval French poem and presents an enchantress putting her lover to sleep? An enchantress puts her lover to sleep in which poem? YouTubers and Zoomers? It is La Belle Dame Sans Mercy. La Belle Dame Sans Mercy. Will you remember, guys? Next, we have Alfred Tennyson. When you look up tomorrow morning, all these poets you should look up. Balin and Balan is part of which book by Tennyson? Balin and Balan is part of which book by Tennyson? Zoomers? Zoom babies. It is Idylls of the King. Balin and Balan, part of Idylls of the King. Which poem did Tennyson want to call Fragments of an Elegy? It contains 132 poems. It is In Memoriam. In Memoriam, he wanted to call it Fragments of an Elegy. Or another title he wanted to give it was The Way of the Soul. Remember, guys, Tennyson, very important. And then Brownings and Arnolds. Browning, Robert Browning, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Matthew Arnold. Very, very important writers. Guys, which of Browning's poems begins with the words fear death? Which poem by Robert Browning begins with the words fear death? It is Prospice. Prospice. Will you remember? Which poem by Browning is subtitled The Faultless Painter? The Faultless Painter. It is Andrea del Sarto. Which poem has the character Romney? Do you know which poem has the character Romney? Lady Waldimar. Anybody? It is Aurora Leigh. Aurora Leigh. The hero's name is Romney. Which poem ends with an epic simile of Tyrian merchants running away when Greek traders come? Which poem ends with an epic simile? Tyrian merchants are running away when Greek traders come. It is at the end of Scholar Gypsy. Very good. Scholar Gypsy. Arnold also was a major prose writer. He wrote critical essays like The Study of Poetry, The Function of Criticism at the Present Time, The Literary Influence of Academies. Will you remember, guys? And also the Pre-Raphaelites, very important. D.G. Rossetti. Who are the Pre-Raphaelites? Tell me. D.G. Rossetti, William Morris, then John Everett Millay, Christina Rossetti, Coventry Patmore. D.G. Rossetti, one question they can ask. One question from Pre-Raphaelites they often ask. Okay, they have asked many times. Important works by D.G. Rossetti, you should remember. Sister Helen, Rosemary, Troy Town, Blessed Damozel. Yes, the Pre-Raphaelites had a journal called The Germ. Okay, will you remember? William Moore is also a very important writer of this time. A.C. Swinburne associated with them. Okay, next we have W.B. Yeats, very, very important poet, W.B. Yeats. W.B. Yeats, everybody knows, was a symbolist poet. Yeats was a major figure during the fin de siècle, means end of the century. End of the century, another figure we talked about yesterday, Oscar Wilde. Hannah and W.B. Yeats wrote Byzantium poems. Then he wrote Leda and the Swan, The Second Coming. He was part of Celtic Revival. Yes, Easter 1916, he was influenced by the Irish Literary Revival. Many of his early poems have Irish themes. Hannah? Later, middle poems have modernist themes. And in his last poems, he developed his own mythopoeia. He developed his own mythology, personal mythology. He developed his own idea, not only personal mythology, his idea of history, Geyer, historical turning, etc. So many symbols he used. He was an amazing poet who wrote many, many important works. Lapis Lazuli, Meru, Circus Animals, Desertion. If you get time, you should look up the works of W.B. Yeats. There will be one question. Yes. World War I poets and Georgians. There could be one question from there also. Wilfred Owen, Rupert Brooke, Siegfried Sassoon. Georgian poets like Walter de la Mare. They were very simple poets in the time of the modernists. They wrote very simple poetry. And the modernist poet, T.S. Eliot, is a very, very important poet of the 20th century. His wasteland was path-breaking. His first major poem was the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Love song was published in the magazine called Poetry. T.S. Eliot, please look up. The wasteland is important. First published in the Criterion. His original title, intended title was He Do the Police in Different Voices. And now 5 sections. And he also went on to write more religious poetry. The Hollow Men, The Journey of the Magi, Ash Wednesday, 4 quartets, poetic drama. They can ask you chronologically arranged question. Please look up tomorrow itself or tonight itself, T.S. Eliot's works. Very, very important for chronological arrangement. Poetic drama also that he wrote. He wrote criticism also, obviously. Poetic criticism, where he talked about impersonality theory. Yes, somebody was pointing it out. Very, very important. Along with T.S. Eliot, there were other modernists like Imagist poets and Auden group. Auden group, W.H. Auden, very important poet, often prescribed. And also Stephen Spender, Louis MacNeice, Cecil Day Lewis, then Christopher Isherwood. They are very important 30s poets. They are called poets of the 30s. Those who are beginners, don't worry. I'm only giving you a tour of your BA and MA years. And after that, we will study all this in great detail. Our paid class will begin in October. We are just getting ready for it. Those who are not paid students, don't worry. We will be there in YouTube also with classes. If you are ready to do self-study, then YouTube classes will benefit you. Look up Auden group, guys. Important poets they are. After that, in 1940s, Dylan Thomas's New Apocalypse movement. It was a surrealist movement. After that, in 1950s, movement poets. Angry Young Man and Movement both came in 1950s. Philip Larkin was an important movement poet. Ted Hughes was also associated with them. Hannah, do you remember? And what are important poems of movement poets? Philip Larkin especially, you should know. Dylan Thomas also, you should know. Okay, all these poets you should look up. It is for homework. Don't forget. Now, Seamus Heaney, one question always they ask. Bog poems, important poems of Seamus Heaney. They definitely ask. Don't forget to look up. Now, let me ask you some questions. Instead of running away, just let me ask you some questions. Are you ready, guys? D.J. Enright was associated with which group? D.J. Enright associated with which group? He was an important movement poet. D.J. Enright, important movement poet. Very good. Who wrote the famous collection, Deaths and Entrances? Who wrote the famous collection, Deaths and Entrances? Deaths and Entrances. It is Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas wrote Deaths and Entrances. Very important writer of this period. Okay. Now, Midterm Break and Punishment are works by Mid-Term Break, and Punishment are works by it is Seamus Heaney. Seamus Heaney's famous poems, Mid-Term Break, it is about his brother's death, and Punishment is a bog poem. Hannah, other contemporary British poets, do you know? Do you know the names of other important British poets? This is Andrew Motion, Carol Ann Duffy. Andrew Motion, Carol Ann Duffy, they are poets laureates. Do you know them? You should know them. Carol Ann Duffy wrote poems based on women. She is a lesbian poet. Wendy Cope, they're all discussed in our Encyclopedia Volume 3. Those who have the Encyclopedia Volume 3, please look up. Current poet laureate is Simon Armitage. Current poet laureate is Simon Armitage. So, guys, let me ask you a few more questions. Whose major poetry collection is Human Geography? Human Geography. Bolo. Whose major poetry collection is Human Geography? It is Simon Armitage. Who wrote The World's Wife? The World's Wife. Bolo. It is Carol Ann Duffy who wrote World's Wife. Did you know that, guys? Then let me ask you another question. Do you have any idea who wrote Mercian Hymns? Mercian, Mercian Hymns. It is Geoffrey Hill. Geoffrey Hill. Okay. Craig Raine was a part of which group? Craig Raine was a part of which group? Craig Raine was a part of which group? Craig Raine was a Martian poet. Craig Raine and Christopher Reid are Martian poets. So that brings us to the end of British poetry discussion. Did you enjoy, guys? It is 9 o'clock and let us sing the end rhyme for today. La, la, la. Arey, don't go. We are ending the lecture. Now it is time for tissue, rapid fire. Are you ready for rapid fire, guys? If you are ready, take out your guns. We will fire at each other. Sethu Lakshmi is our today's quiz master. Sethu Lakshmi is here. I am making her co-host.
Okay.
Hello, Sethu.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, and I am sharing our quiz for today.
Yes, I'm Sethu Lakshmi. I'm part of Team TES. So hope you all are preparing well for your NET exam. So don't get pressurized, guys. We are with you. Take good care of your health and prepare well. So yeah, let's continue our rapid session.
Sethu, some people are saying they need 1 minute break. So let's just have small talk for one more minute and then we will start asking questions.
Sure.
Sethu, you have got NET with JRF.
Yes.
Tell me, how was the experience?
It was great. I still I could remember your class very well because especially that memory tips, I would say, because I could still remember those years very clearly. Now I'm teaching at TES and even I share those preparation tips with the students. So yes, one thing it's now I think the question pattern have changed a bit, because mostly like they have been asking you questions based on chronology, but it's very easy. If you know like some basics and everything, it's easy actually, but they ask questions in a bit convoluted manner. So don't get pressurized, I would say. Prepare well. Again, listen to all ma'am's lectures. Please, students, it's important. Please listen to her lectures and preparation tips. Yes.
Setu, before the exam, you had a lot of stress. You were studying and it was so difficult. You were trying to remember and you were stressed. But once you passed, how beautiful it is, isn't it, Setu? Tell us about it.
Yes, it feels great. We know your pressure is because now the exam, because it's happening only once in a year, but don't get, it's worth it, I would say, because again, you're doing great and you're studying a subject that's
so deeply, so well.
Yeah, yes. So do it. I mean, try to like even, yeah, some might be because I think there are people who are writing NET exam for the first time. So
some are writing several times, some are housewives. Yeah. Whoever you are, guys, it is actually worth it. But because after you pass, it is so beautiful. It is not only about the job or the exam. You are studying your subject so deeply. You are getting ready for an amazing career. You should write many, many exams. You should get ready for your career in so many ways. It helps you to do research also, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So, Setu, tell me, you are also doing research now. You are going to submit your research thesis. Tell me, as a researcher, hasn't the knowledge of literature and theory preparing for NET immensely helped you?
True. Yes, it helped me to identify the area that suits my interest. That helped me a lot. And don't, I would suggest to students who are writing the NET exam, don't aim for NET, I would say, aim for JRF. That's important. Because even like some people, they would say, I can't clear NET. No. It's important to aim for JRF.
If you aim for JRF, you may get it easily.
Yes.
Why do you want to deny yourself that opportunity? And also, it looks absolutely awesome on your CV. So aim high. You never know. You might be far better than what you think you are. Study so hard and don't stop without getting it. Whatever happens, you should get it. Like that, you should study. Hannah? Good. So now we'll start. Okay, Setu. First question is on metaphysical poetry.
First question, which of the following is not true about metaphysical poetry? Which of the following is not true about metaphysical poetry? They used metaphysical conceits and far-fetched imagery. They wrote sensuous poems in the manner of Petrarchan love poetry. And the last option, they explored both sacred and profane themes in their poetry. So what do you think, guys? What could be the answer? Yes, answers are coming. Yes.
Which of the following is not true? That is the question. So it is.
They wrote sensuous poems in the manner of Petrarchan love poetry.
Actually, the metaphysical poets were against the Petrarchan conventions. Even though some of them wrote Petrarchan conventions also, metaphysical poets were largely against Petrarchan conventions. So remember that. Next question.
Identify the collection.
I will just... Okay. Continue, Setu.
Identify the collection of poetry by George Herbert, which he described thus. It is a picture of the many spiritual conflicts that have passed betwixt God and my soul, before I could subject mine to the will of Jesus, my master, in whose service I have now found perfect freedom. my master in whose service I have now found perfect freedom. Is it the temple? Is it the Easter wings? Or is it steps to the temple? Temple, Easter wings, or steps to the temple?
And the answer is?
Yes, the temple.
Easter Wings was only a small poem. It was not a collection. Steps to the Temple was by Richard Crashaw. The Temple is George Herbert's main and only collection. It was published after his death by his friend Nicolas Ferrar. Okay, next question.
Next question. Where, like a pillow on a bed, a pregnant bank swelled up to rest, the violet's reclining head, sat we two, one another's best. These are the opening lines of The Ecstasy by John Donne, Lapis Lazuli by W.B. Yeats, Epithalamion by Edmund Spenser. What could be the right answer?
Ta-dang!
Yes. Yes. The Ecstasy by John Donne.
That's right.
The Ecstasy by John Donne.
Guys, please remember to read at least the opening lines of major poems. There will definitely be questions to check whether you have done your own reading. Okay? Next question, Setu, is on Augustan poetry.
Prior to Coleridge, who was satirized in the first 3 books of the Dunciad by Alexander Pope? Prior to Coleridge, who was satirized in the first 3 books of the Dunciad by Alexander Pope? Thomas Shadwell, William Temple, or Leo Theobald's?
So the Dunciad had 2 versions. First, it attacked somebody. Then it attacked Coleridge. First, who was attacked in the Dunciad? It is Lewis Theobald. Guys, Alexander Pope brought out an edition of Shakespeare which was faulty. Lewis Theobald attacked that edition and attacked Pope in the book Shakespeare Restored. That is why Pope wrote against Lewis Theobald in the Dunciad, first edition. Okay, next question.
Next question. Arrange the following poems of Alexander Pope in the correct chronological order. Arrange the following poems of Alexander Pope in the correct chronological order. The Temple of Fame, A Vision, The Dunciad, Windsor Forest, Messiah.
So, in the exam, as you know, there will be A, B, C, B, C, D, C, D, A, like that, confusing numbers. In YouTube, you will be confused. So, we did not want to make it complicated. Simply look at the poems and see whether you know which one came first. One thing I already told you, the Dunciad is one of the last poems, 1730s. The essay on man, Dunciad, and moral essays, these were last poems. Remember that? The Temple of Fame is modeled on Chaucer's House of Fame. It came very early, actually. So with that, we will look at the answer. This is the correct order. First, there was a poem called Messiah. Remember, in such questions, even if you don't know every single question or every single book, you will still be able to get the answer if you know the main ones. Messiah, please look up and read on your own. Then Windsor Forest, 1713. Temple of Fame was published in Collected Works, 1717. Then in 1730s came the Dunciad. All right, Setu, let us move on.
Yes. Next
Now,
question is on romantic poetry. Sorry, ma'am. In which among the following poems did the poet saw a woman in a vision playing a dulcimer? Is it Kubla Khan, Ode on a Grecian Urn, Sorrow Beyond Dreams? It's a very easy question. Yes.
In which of these poems did the poet see a woman in a vision playing a dulcimer? A damsel with a dulcimer is in?
Yes, many said it right, Kubla Khan. Right answer.
So guys, in the exam, there will be questions based on very important books and poems, etc. 30% of questions should be easy. 30% of questions should be very difficult also. It is the in between 40% that you should get in order to pass. Did you understand? Some questions you cannot answer. You don't have to worry about it. You can't get 100% anyway. So you should never go wrong with the easy questions. Study properly all that. Next question.
Next question. Ozymandias is a sonnet by P.B. Shelley, published in. Again, the years, that's again an important in NET exam. 1814. Is it 1814, 1816, or 1818?
Many of you know Ozymandias. It's a sonnet. What is it about? But did you know in the year of publication? It is 1818. Yes, Setu. 1818 and 1819 were very important years in Shelley's oeuvre. Many of his works came in this period. So when you study the major writers and major works, please look up the year of publication also and remember it. Okay. Next.
Next question. Which of the following poet or poetry pair hasn't used Spenserian stanza in their poetry? Which of the following poet or poetry pair hasn't used Spenserian stanza in their poetry? Byron's Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, Wordsworth's The Prelude, Keats in the Eve of St. Agnes.
Which of these is not in Spenserian stanza? One of these is in blank verse, and that is
Wordsworth's The Prelude. Yes.
So remember to look up the meter, stanzaic form, etc. of the major works. What are they checking? They are checking whether you have studied properly. Next question, Setu.
Who among the following defined poetry as the best words in the best order? William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, or Robert Browning?
That is actually a very famous statement that a critic has made. And the answer is?
Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
The best words in the best order. In which book did he say that, Setu?
In Biographia Literaria.
Literaria, very good. In Biographia Literaria, where he talked about imagination, he also said poetry should be the best words in the best order. And he was actually criticizing Wordsworth here. He was saying that it is not necessary that poetry should be in rustic language. Poetry has essentially no difference from prose that Wordsworth had said. And Coleridge was refuting this idea when he said poetry is the best words in the best order. Setu, next question to you.
Identify the poem by P.B. Shelley in which he criticizes England's oppressive ruling class. Identify the poem by P.B. Shelley in which he criticizes England's oppressive ruling class. England in 1819, Queen Mab, or in Mont Blanc.
Which of these poems criticizes England's oppressive ruling class? Do you know, guys? Setu teaches Shelley and these poets amazingly well. I feel jealous of her when she teaches because she is such a sweet teacher and she speaks with such power also. It is a brilliant combination. Setu, what is the answer, Setu? Tell us.
England in 1890.
Shelley is saying that the rich people in England are oppressing the poor people. Shelley said that in many poems. You know, he asked the people of England, wherefore weave thou rich robes, your tyrants wear? Why are you doing all this work for the rich people? Don't do it. He said that, remember? Men of England, wherefore plow for the lords who lay ye low. Remember that poem? England in 1819 was a response to the Peterloo massacre. Many people were massacred at St. Peter's Fields. Even Ode to the West Wind was a response to England in 1819. Isn't it? Okay, next question. Aha, match the following.
Match list 1 with list 2. In list 1, we have Ode on Melancholy, Love's Philosophy, My Heart Leaps Up, The In-Shape Rock. And in list 2, we have P.B. Shelley, John Keats, Robert Southey, William Wordsworth.
If you know one or two of these, you will easily get the answer. I'm sure all of you know Ode on Melancholy. All of you will know My Heart Leaps Up also, isn't it? Now let us look at the answer. Shall we say so?
Ode on Melancholy by John Keats. Love's Philosophy by P.B. Shelley. My Heart Leaps Up by William Wordsworth. The In-Shape Rock by Robert Southey.
Promise me, guys, Zoom babies and YouTube babies, that you are going to read on Love's Philosophy and In-Shape Rock tonight itself. Please look up all these works. You should definitely, don't be lazy, read extra and be ready. Okay?
Did you like the questions, guys? Please let us know in your comments, please.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, next question is on Victorian poetry. Which poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson, published in 1830, has the origin of its premise in William Shakespeare's Measure for Measure? Which poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson, published in 1830, has the origin of its premise in William Shakespeare's Measure for Measure? Claribel, Mariana, or Timbuktu?
Do you know the name of the poem is the name of a character in Measure for Measure? The answer is?
The answer is Mariana. Option B, right answer. Yes, option B.
In Measure for Measure, Mariana is the lover of Angelo. Angelo is a Puritan. He had refused to marry her. And Mariana waits for him. Finally, she gets to marry him. So Mariana is the symbol of longing, long lost love. And this character Mariana became very famous in the Victorian period. Okay, there is also a painting of Mariana made by John Everett Millay. Next question. Sorry.
Which Victorian poem is subtitled A Fragment of a Confession? Which Victorian poem is subtitled A Fragment of a Confession? Pauline, Ulysses, or Asolando? Pauline, Ulysses, or Asolando?
Pauline is by Robert Browning. Ulysses is by Tennyson. Asolando is by, again, Browning. It was his last work. And it is Pauline. It is an early work. Remember, Setu, Pauline, Paracelsus, they were early works of Browning. Pauline, A Fragment of a Confession. Many of them are saying the correct answer. Good. Next question.
Next question is on transitional poetry. Identify the 18th century writer who wrote The Deserted Village, published in the year 1770, which is set in Ireland and deals with the memories of his youth, where the pathetic emotion is more freely expressed. Thomas Gray, Oliver Goldsmith, or by James Thomson?
Guys, this question might be easy for you, but we are just giving you some extra points. It is set in Ireland. It deals with the memories of his youth. Do you know the answer? Yes, it is
Oliver Goldsmith.
Oliver Goldsmith wrote The Deserted Village. The Deserted Village and The Traveller. These are two important poems by Oliver Goldsmith. The Deserted Village is about a village called, what is the name of that village? Sweet Auburn. That is important. Next question.
Identify the poem which opens this. I wander through each charactered street.
Chartered
street, near where the chartered Thames does flow. I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow. London by William Blake, London 1802 by William Wordsworth, London, a poem by Samuel Johnson.
Ayyo, what a confusion. It is so confusing. London, London, London. Remember, 3 people have written it. Do you know, guys? We are waiting for your answers. Zoom babies. The answer is?
London by William Blake.
Yes.
Option E.
That is an important poem. Please read it, okay? Next. Oh.
20th century poetry. It's a very easy question. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. These are the famous opening lines of The Second Coming, Journey of the Magi, Easter 1960. Yes.
We would all know that.
Many are saying the correct answer. Yes. Yes. The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats.
That's right. Please read it. W.B. Yeats, one short question is there.
Next question. Among the following, identify the one which is not a title of one of the sections in the Wastelands. What the Thunder Said, Death by Water, A Game of Tarots. Easy question. Yes.
What are the 5 sections of the Wasteland? The Burial of the Dead. Then A Game of Chess, The Fire Sermon, then Death by Water, What the Thunder Said. So the answer is?
Yes, A Game of Tarots. Next question. The line, Something of a Sad Freedom, from The Toland Man by Seamus Heaney is an example of assonance, oxymoron, or onomatopoeia. The line, Something of a Sad Freedom, from The Toland Man by Seamus Heaney is an example of assonance, oxymoron, or onomatopoeia.
Remember, there is prosody, figures of speech, etc. Something of his sad freedom.
Yes, the right answer is oxymoron. Option B, yes.
Freedom should be something that is happy, but he talks about sad freedom.
Next question. Who is the author of the following lines? The apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bow. Ezra Pound, Jack Kerouac, Basho.
This is an entire poem called In a Station of the Metro. The answer is?
Ezra Pound.
Wow, many of them said that. Correct answer.
Next question. The speaker in the poem, Mr. Bleaney, is renting a room and compares his situation to that of its previous occupant, or Mr. Bleaney. Who is the author of the poem first published in The Listener in 1955? Oliver Goldsmith, Seamus Heaney, or Philip Larkin?
Ayyo, it can't be Oliver Goldsmith, guys. How can it be published in 1955? I will give you a clue. This is a very conversational poem. The poet wrote in a very conversational, sardonic style. That is typical of that poet. Who is the poet?
The answer is Philip Larkin.
Yes. Guys, are you enjoying this? Did you like the questions? Did you like the new method in which we are giving you the questions? Are you feeling bored or enjoying? Tell us. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is so sweet of you.
Who coined the term the movement? Next question. Who coined the term the movement? Is it by J.D. Scott, Donald Davy, or Martin Esslin?
Wow. The term, the movement. Hooray, I thought it was coined by Philip Larkin. I think the answer is wrong. There is no correct answer here. No, Setu, these days all students know more than me. I'm learning a lot from them. They know the correct answer is
J.D. Scott.
J.D. Scott. It is J.D. Scott. Ta-dang!
Next question. What is the poetic form of Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas? Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. Ballad, free verse, or villanelle?
Oh, you are all wondering, Dylan Thomas, do not go gentle into that good night. It is about his dying father. Oh, poor Dylan Thomas. He must have really got sad when his father died. But he's telling his father, don't just die like that. Do not go gentle. Rage against the dying of the light. What is it, guys? Do you have any idea? It is the poetic form called
Villanelle.
Villanelle. There is a villanelle written by Sylvia Plath also. Hey, we are not going to spoon feed them. Setu, it is their homework, okay? You don't tell them anything. It is their homework tonight or tomorrow morning itself. They are all going to look up what is villanelle.
Okay. Submit your answers tomorrow, guys.
Yes.
Waiting for your,
When we start YouTube and Zoom, immediately you should be telling us what is villanelle. Only then we'll proceed. Okay, Zoomers, YouTubers.
Next question. Again, there's another match the following question. Match list with list 2. In list 1, we have John Wayne, William Morris, Dylan Thomas, and Edward Upward. In list 2, we have Pre-Raphaelite poets, movement poetry, odd and group of poets, and neo-romantic poetry.
Setu, I have always felt so angry with the parents of Edward Upward. They knew that their surname is Upward. Knowing that their surname is Upward, why did they give this name to their son, Edward Upward? His school friends must have made fun of him so much. He should have been called Henry Upward or some other Upward. Thank God his surname is not Downward. Ayyo.
It's better than downward.
Guys, let us match these authors. Ta-dang!
John Wayne belonged to movement poetry. William Morris belonged to Pre-Raphaelite poets. Dylan Thomas, neo-romantic poetry, and Edward Upward in Auden group of poets.
Array, in Auden group, we know that W.H. Auden, Stephen Spender, Christopher Isherwood, then Cecil Day Lewis, Louis MacNeice, Edward Upward is also there. Did you know that? Even though we are angry with his parents, we don't mind him. He's nice. He is from Auden group of poets. Tarang, that brings us to the end of this amazing session. Thank you so much, Setu Lakshmi. Thank you so much.
It was great meeting you all. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, YouTube babies. Zoom babies, you keep on leaving, in the beginning, you're all enthusiastic and after some time you're leaving. Why am I telling you now? Because those who left have left. Anyway, convey this to your friends. I will tell them in the beginning, right at the beginning next day. Okay. So tomorrow again we'll have poetry part 2.
Don't forget about your
poetry.
assignment. Yeah.
Yes, don't forget your assignment. You have to do your homework. Okay, bye-bye. Love you all.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.